You're listening to The Weekend Take. And now your host, Sean Schaefer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekend Take. I'm your host, Sean Schaefer, and with me this week is cinematographer, editor, animator, and director of video and motion for Overit Media, Solomon Nero. Solomon, how are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Sean? Thanks for having me on.
So, Solomon, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, currently I'm like you're saying, I'm the director of video and motion animation at Overit Media, which is an ad agency in Albany, New York. I've been here for almost 2 years now. Before that, I was a freelance cinematographer and animator and even sometimes VFX artist. It's really different to go from having all these different types of projects, and which I still do have at Overit, but oftentimes I'm doing all that work. I'd usually focus on like maybe 2 major projects at a time, and maybe with another small one here and there, and that would be my workload. But at something like an agency, I'm not only responsible for the cinematography and the editing and post-production and all that, I'm also responsible for an entire department. So sometimes I'll only be shooting or editing maybe 10% of the time on one week, and the rest of the week I'll be in meetings and giving quotes and doing all sorts of different kinds of things. So it's definitely been different. My whole career has been it's been in the trenches. And this one's a little bit more managerial. It's been really interesting. It's been stretching me out as an artist to kind of understand a lot more of what it takes to get something off the ground and get a concept rolling. So, because directing projects I have done loosely, mostly for my own, but now I'm actually directing most of these projects as well as doing everything else. So it's been really, really interesting to, I guess, wear so many hats at once has definitely been trying. I think I'm growing in a very different way, which I think is good.
Now, where you are now is a far departure from where you started. Initially, you went to college up in Toronto, I believe, yes?
Yep.
To pursue 3D animation.
I went to school in Toronto for 3D animation at the Art Institute of Toronto, which may it rest in peace. But I started out as a 3D animator. I worked in Buffalo, working on TV shows and commercials and stuff like that. And then I eventually ended up being a director and animator at Four Directions Productions, which in Oneida, New York, which is actually creating these Native American legends, taking these Native American legends for the Oneida Indian Nation and turning them into 3D animated films to preserve their culture, which was really great. I did that for about 4.5 years. My interest in cinematography has always been strong ever since I was a little kid. The only reason I never got into it was because I looked at video cameras. I said, that looks like crap. And I looked at movie cameras and I was like, that's what I want. So I could never afford one, so I never did it. But then with the whole advent of DSLRs, I'm like, this is the closest thing I have ever seen to the look or feel of a film camera. So I got one and shot a little music video for my brother just goofing around. And the cinematographer at Four Directions saw it and said, hey, man, you ever interested in working with me? And I was like, oh, my God, hell yeah. So and then I just started training under him. And then after that, the rest is history. I went off on my own and just started shooting and learning. And then I did that for a couple of years. And then actually I met the host of our show today, Sean Schaefer, and started working with him and learned so much working with him. It's been a great experience. But yeah, so moving from 3D animation through onto cinematography has been very interesting because it has given me a skill set that has been very coveted in this area, to be able to have not just the camera and lighting abilities on set, but to also have the post-production and the animation and motion graphics, a handle on that as well.
So, you really are a bit of a multimedia making machine, because aside from cinematography, animation, motion graphics, you are also a musician as well, yes?
Minimalistically, yes. In my younger days, I was much more into it. But yes, today I still do a lot of music, which actually in the music video area has gotten a lot of musicians interested in having me do music videos for them, because I very much understand the music side as well as the live action side.
So stemming off of that, then, when you approach a project, because you have all these parts of your brain that can kind of light up with creativity as to what you know and what you can do, like when you're shooting something, are you also thinking about, okay, the motion graphics go here, the editing is like this, and this is the type of song that I hear playing? Like, do you mesh all of those together when approaching a project?
100%. Absolutely. Every single project. And a lot of them, because now I'm even coming up with the concepts for them. Like the concepts are coming from me, and also from the wonderful team that I have the privilege to work with. But a lot of that stuff is just determined right from the beginning. There's a commercial that I did was for the Alcon Retina Film Festival, which is pretty much all these surgeons coming together, these retina surgeons from all over the world coming together to one location to just talk about like the cutting edge of their craft and the new things that are coming out. All their ads have been very unsuccessful in the past, and I had this idea of adding a slight bit of humor to it, and they were very reluctant, but because they believed in me, because I actually worked with them on something else, they trusted me with it. It was actually one of their most successful ad campaigns they've ever had, and all of it was just like you said. It was all thought out from the beginning. The moment I had the concept and I pitched it to him, I had the music down, the animation, the video from previous ones were going to come up. It comes up, the guy's in an operating table, he lifts his head up and there's an operating TV and it shifts over to previous footage. All that stuff was all determined. The type of goofy music was all thought of from the very beginning.
It's great. I mean, and outside of the agency world, you mentioned you yourself being a cinematographer. You do have a couple of really nice titles under your belt, being Altered Hours and the Albany Patroons documentary that you acted as lead cinematographer on both of those projects. But to this point, what has been, I guess, the most rewarding project, you think?
Like overall, or would you say just at Overit?
Overall, looking at now your body of work in all the different facets that you've performed in as a cinematographer, an editor, 3D animator, motion graphics, anything, what would you have to say is the project that sticks out to you?
That's really hard to answer because I can't express how thankful I am for every single project I have worked on. I have learned so much on every single one of them. And really, I think that's really what's most impactful and most important for me is what you get to learn from it. Notoriety and all that stuff, that's all great. And maybe someday that'll happen. Honestly, at this point, I just focus on like what I learned and the different people I got to connect with and work with. I'd probably have to say the Albany Patroons doc, which is called the Minor League Mecca. This was a really cool project because I got to work with some really, really great people. You being one of them. I got to meet all different kinds of people. I had to change how I would light or approach a situation based on budget, based on time. And many times I had lots of budget and lots of time to focus in on things, which was just wonderful, which I think visually reflects in the film, where in some other projects in the past, the budget has actually been so challenging, it would actually restrict a project from being creative, but which would also create creative ways to achieve something, which would have its own reward. So like I said, it's so hard to pick just one, but I'd probably have to say that one because it also spanned over the course of about 2.5, 3 years. I had the pleasure of working with so many different people and so many different crews all around the U.S. while working on this project. So it was a really cool project to be a part of.
What would you say is the best advice that anybody has given you coming up in your career?
That's a really tough one.
Let's say someone's listening to the show and they want to follow a similar path. I guess what advice would you then give them?
I would probably say a couple things. One, stay true to what you want to do. And that doesn't mean that whatever it is you're doing now or you originally wanted to do, stick with that. Because our paths can definitely go down different roads to bring us ultimately to where we're meant to be. If you went to school to do something and you're really feeling led to go in another direction, be true to that, like what you're really feeling. I think staying true to what you really should be doing is probably what I would say. And however you do it, especially at least I can only speak to my area of expertise, college is not necessary anymore. Maybe it used to be, but I look at resumes all the time, and I very, very rarely look at where they went to school. It all depends on the work that they outputted and how well that speaks. So if you have the passion, you can really carve your own way in this industry by just pushing forward and finding any resource you can. If you're passionate about it, man, don't give up. If you don't have the money to go to school, don't worry about it. You don't need it anymore. You can do something with your iPhone, for God's sakes. I mean, look at Steven Soderbergh.
I never attended any film school, and I've been doing this now for it'll be 17 years in May. So
yeah.
So now looking ahead, what do you have coming in 2019?
Well, 2019, I'm not sure. I'm going to continue doing the work at Overit and stuff like that. But I have a story that I've been writing for, I'd say probably about a year. No, maybe a little longer than a year. Coming back to it, it's really getting to a point now where I really, really want to make it. It would be a short film, but I'm getting to the point where I really feel like, man, I really want to make this. After all the things I've been kind of just, the experience I have been accumulating, I really want to just put that all together and just make a film, make my own like narrative story that's not something that's based on advertising or anything like that. Still working on funding, but my hope is that by 2019 or 2020, I can just come out with something that can hopefully touch people. I'm really interested in making something that might uplift someone or give them some, hope in some way, shape, or form. So I'm hoping that I can make a film that can do that, but who knows?
Are we going to have an opportunity as a general audience to check out the minor league Mecca this year?
This year, it's hard to say. Right now, that film, we've been fighting for about 4 years to get rights to some ESPN footage from the old games, and they just got it. So now they're scrambling to because we had a premiere and it went very, very, very well. But now we have some missing footage that we have desperately wanted for a long time. So now we have the permission to use it. So now they are splicing that into the film and getting that in different places. And I think it's actually making some other points that might be worth revisiting some interviews. So I don't know. Some things are up in the air at this point. I think they're looking for it to be out this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer to 2020.
Okay. But if anybody does want to check out Solomon's work as a cinematographer, Altered Hours is available now. What platforms can an audience check out Altered Hours on?
Oh my goodness. There's a lot, at least initially. I believe they're all still up, but originally I believe it was like Comcast, like DirecTV stuff. But Amazon is probably the easiest. If you have Prime, you can get it on Amazon. It's on Google Play. I believe it's also on iTunes. So there's many different ways you can see it. But if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it pretty much for free.
Or if you're like me and like to hold things physically, you can purchase a DVD or Blu-ray of the film as well, right?
Yes, you can, and which I have, which was I have to say that was definitely an experience. The first time holding something actually distributed and manufactured that you had a hand in your hands. It was just kind of like, wow, that's kind of cool.
So just to wrap up, and I want to thank you for coming on and talking a little bit about yourself with us, is how can people connect with you? How can they get in touch with you, or how can they check out some of your work?
Well, I oftentimes post my work or snippets from my work on Facebook and Instagram. You can check me out there, and that's probably the best way to check me out. My website, unfortunately, is a little out of date, but there is contact information on there too as well.
And are there particular social media handles for either Twitter or Instagram that people should check out?
So my Instagram is Nero_minded_productions, which is quite a bit. I apologize, but that's how you can find me out. And I also have a Nero Minded Productions page on Facebook, or you can just add me personally, Solomon Nero, on Facebook. I'm pretty open to anyone as long as you're not a dingleberry.
And I'll be sure to put pertinent links in the episode description as well when the episode comes out for anybody who wants to check out some of Solomon's work or get in touch with him. But I do appreciate you taking the time to talk a bit with us about what you do.
Great, thanks.
That about wraps it up for us here this week on The Weekend Take. I want to thank Solomon Nero for coming on the show and being our special guest this week. And The Weekend Take is on social media as well. We're on Twitter at Weekend Take. We're on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Weekend Take. And please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/The Weekend Take, where for as little as $1, you can become a patron of The Weekend Take and get exclusive access to extended cuts of the episodes if you want to hear more of the conversation had this week and any of the previous weeks with some of our guests. Until next week, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and take care.
You've been listening to The Weekend Take. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Visit our Patreon page to become a patron of The Weekend Take, and for as little as $1, you'll receive exclusive content and perks.